Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here to give you the news on what I think these new characters in the 4.2 beta are. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they mid? Whatever, right? So let's get straight into it. As always, I prefer to start off with the Nova Flared characters because, I mean, most people probably care about that. So let's go ahead. Welt is a behemoth. Okay, Welt now is able to slow enemies a fuck ton. However, also, similar to Ashvale, he can automatically apply 40% defense reduction to all enemies on the field, and also have 35% increased damage taken on enemies on the field, which is vulnerability, right? So his amping capability is actually very high, and this combined with, let's say, like a Pearl's Light Cone adds 16% more defense reduction. You are now getting like nearly 90% overall damage amp from a Welt. However, not only this, for the unlucky or lucky few who are near or at E6 for Welt, his new E6 reduces enemy res by 30%, right? So straight up, just add 30% res reduction, and now the amp is closer to 120 to 130%. An absolute monster in terms of debuffing enemies and slowing them, which makes him pretty good for cheaper sustainless clears and lower cost clears for certain characters. A lot of people are currently abusing him for tackling endgame content because of all these amps that he's able to give, right? So Welt has gotten a massive buff. He's genuinely meta. Even at E0 without the E6's res reduction, he's still one of the best debuffers in the entirety of the game for amping damage. Honestly, this is a really good Nova Flare. I have absolutely zero complaints. I've even seen some people run E6 Welt as a main DPS, and he's been able to get like a 2 cost 0 cycle against Dark Sam. So if you do have that very high level of investment into him, and I'd say what mainly matters in this case scenario are probably his E2 and E4 for main DPS. You don't need the E6. You can genuinely run him as a main DPS with free-to-play supports. Let's say you chose Sparkle from the selector, run it alongside RMC and Donhung PT. He's actually gonna do incredibly well, right? Honestly, it's baffling how good his buff is. I was a little worried that maybe they'd hold back on his buffs because it's a standard character, right? I wouldn't expect them to really give a standard character all the best of treatment, but despite my expectations, they've surpassed them. He is in a very amazing spot. Next, let's talk about Huohuo, right? So Huohuo, she didn't get buffed that much. Now this is something I semi-expected. However, I at least thought they'd buff her energy gen gimmick on the team a little bit. However, they haven't increased her energy gen and they haven't increased her attack buffs. To be honest, this might be the most underwhelming Nova in the game so far, because really all they've done for Huohuo at E0 is slightly increase her sustain capability and slightly decrease her need for SP consumption. And that's about it, right? There really isn't anything else at base E0 that Huohuo has really gained out of all this. Oh wait, no. Also, if you have allies on the team who have a 160 or larger energy requirement, then they will get a bigger attack buff, right? So there is that. However, even then, it's something very small in my opinion. The main buff towards Huohuo is actually locked to her E1. Now, I don't have a big gripe against this because she is going to be added to the golden token shop, basically confirmed by the most reliable leakers in the game at this point. However, it is annoying that they're really using her as E1 bait. For those who don't know what her E1 now is, it is a 20% team-wide speed buff, which is just amazing all around no matter what team you put her in. And then it also increases her healing ability by 100%, so double, right? So her healing capability gets significantly buffed, so you're much less likely to die, and you get a significant speed buff on the team, which specifically for elation teams, which a lot of people are going to be using her on, really helps with hitting certain speed requirements for AHA instant acting a certain amount of times, right? So she is good at E1, but at base E0, this Nova Flare is definitely underwhelming. One nitpick I have in what makes Hyacine so great, and no, I'm not going to ask for Huohuo to get the max HP increase on teammates, the same thing that Hyacine does. What makes Hyacine so great is that each time, or every time, an ally on your team is attacked, she will heal them a little bit, right? This really matters. We are now at a point in this game where enemies can consecutively act over and over and over and over again before any of your characters are able to take a turn. So Hyacine, even if she can't heal out of turn, because there is like a passive healing ability from each time an ally gets attacked, 99% of the time you're never gonna die. Huohuo does not have this, right? So certain bosses, when they do like a nuke move, or if they just act consecutively too many times too fast, and Huohuo can't take a turn, or the character can't take a turn in time, you will just die no matter what. It just feels really, really bad, right? So I do think they need to add something in her kit. Either one, damage reduction, right? Maybe she can make allies on the team have a bit of damage reduction, or exactly like Hyacine, have it so that maybe each time an ally is attacked, they heal back like 8 to 10% of their max HP. Because this is really what it feels like she's missing for people to be able to run Huohuo and not have to worry about sustain issues as much, right? So hopefully they do end up doing that. Now let's move on to Seele. Now Seele has been clowned on for having the most underwhelming buff out of all of these Nova Flared characters. However, as you guys may tell from what I've gone through so far, in my opinion, it is Huohuo. Seele has gotten buffed quite significantly. However, I also do not think it's enough. There are a bunch of shenanigans you can do with Seele's resurgence. This has always been a thing I've said, and to be honest, why I originally told my audience I don't think this game is ever going to buff Seele. It's very tricky to work with Seele because if you make her too strong, she'll probably last 2 to 3 years without actually needing that much vertical investment because of how strong Resurgence itself is, right? It's very easy to either make this character too overtuned or make it too undertuned if you are scared of making them strong enough. I do think she just needs to be a little stronger, just a little bit, right? She is in a good spot right now for sure for clearing endgame content generally, and especially at higher vertical investments. Once again, there's like some shenanigans you can do with like getting a 0 cycle against Pure Fiction, which is crazy for a hunt unit, sustained 0 cycling Nikador. However, these are like favorable matchups, and this is not something that she's going to be able to do consistently. I value consistency, and I don't want Seele to end up being a Jingliu in which they look good, right? Not great. They look good when they get Nova Flared, but because it wasn't enough, they end up falling off very quickly once more HP inflation from the rest of the version hits, and then everybody calls it a underwhelming Nova Flare. I do want a little more, whether it be in multipliers, buffing her earlier Eidolon, since to be honest, I don't have too much of an issue with this because a lot of people may have a Seele at this point for 50-50 losses, right? I'd take any buff for Seele currently. I definitely want her to be about like 20 to 25% stronger, in my opinion, at least, right? But she is in a good enough spot to be ran as a main DPS. Do not, think I'm saying she's garbage tier or anything, right? Next, we have... Wait. Who's the other Nova Flared character? We have Welt, we have Huohuo, we have Seele. Who's the other one? Firefly. Right. So Firefly definitely got one of the best buffs out of all these Nova Flares. Now, as you guys know, yes, Firefly is already strong. However, I've said what I've said. Firefly has been getting hard carried by Dahlia. There have been Himeko Zero cycles against AA bosses and MOC bosses nearing the exact clears as Firefly. There's been fucking March 7th Zero cycles, right? The 4-star follow-up sub DPS being ran as a break DPS and competing with Firefly once again against certain MOCs and an AA boss, right? So while I understand people don't want Firefly to get buffed, at the end of the day, Firefly just wasn't special enough to entice people into investing into the break team. People just cared way more about Dahlia herself and her own vertical investment, which, to be honest, is more worth it, because if you do that, you can make nearly anybody your main DPS instead of needing to solely rely on using your Firefly, right? So Firefly has gotten a few buffs. She now has a blast implant. It used to be single target when she used her skill. Now it's blast. So this is pretty useful, and I believe it is also a multiplier increase because she is eating through toughness bars earlier than usual, right? On top of this, her own innate kit super break multiplier got tripled. It went from a max of 50% to a max of 150%. So super break multipliers, like a lot of people guessed, did end up getting buffed, which is very nice. On top of this, her combustion state, you can now delay it up to 30%, meaning she can stay in her ult significantly longer without getting kicked out, meaning you are much more likely to have a very good amount of energy to either instantly re-enter ult or re-enter on the next turn every single time when paired with Dahlia, which is very convenient, right? Now, unlike what I originally expected when it came to her Eidolon changes, I thought they might add the E1's SP neutrality / positivity in her base kit, and they might make the E1 more damage increase oriented, which they didn't do. However, my prediction about them making her E2 an extra turn every turn, they did do. So now, she no longer needs to wait every other turn to enable her extra turn from breaking. She can get it every single turn, which is a lot stronger, of course. So Firefly, in my opinion, got a really good buff. It's nothing too over the top. Base kit buffs are nice, but to be honest, it's not like they're astronomical, right? But it's mainly the E2, in my opinion, for Firefly that is like this absolutely huge game changer. And the E2 combined with all these base kit changes is also really, really good. And now, before, right, when E2 Firefly used to be like significantly better than E0 Firefly, I'd say probably now an E0 Firefly is more competitive with a pre-Nova Flare E2 Firefly, which is really, really nice for those who don't want to go all the way into the E2 Eidolons for Firefly. E0 Firefly is now a very good and worth pulling DPS with Dahlia without needing to rely on Eidolons, right? And that's pretty good in my opinion. I'll always take that at the end of the day. Now, let's move on to our two newest characters being introduced on the anniversary and our first real main DPSs in this version so far. We have, oh, I almost said Yao Guang. We have Evanessia and as well as Silverwolf. So let's get into Evanessia real quick, right? Evanessia is currently getting the lowest cost clears in the entirety of the game of any DPS, right? She is currently doing quite fantastic. Now, Evanessia is a mainly bounce damage dealer, and this bounce damage mainly comes from her ultimate. Evanessia loves Certified Banger, and her best in slot teammate, despite a ton of dooming that there was across all social medias, is Yao Guang. Yao Guang is the undisputable best in slot for her. Now, I will say the synergy with Evanessia isn't as large as her synergy with Silverwolf, which was something I originally predicted. My original prediction when it came to Evanessia's team was that She would get supports that buff her team, like Yao Guang and probably in the future Nihilux if she's in Elation Sustain. However, she will not be the main one getting like massively buffed from getting these supports. These supports are definitely going to have the most synergy with Silverwolf, since she's the main push and she's the one that Huohuo is mainly trying to sell. So Evanessia, although she will get buffed, it'll never be as much, or these supports won't be as important to her as they are for Silverwolf. And this has completely come true. Even though Yao Guang is her best in slot, it is not at all even close to how much Yao Guang is a best in slot for Silverwolf, right? So a lot of people are like theorizing that because of this, Yao Guang might get replaced later down the line. She'll get kicked out, and like some new elation support for Evanessia will come, right? But I don't think this is going to happen. I just don't. I don't think Evanessia is going to get any tailored supports or dedicated supports for her. It's only going to be Silverwolf, and once again, Evanessia is going to have to leech. However, despite this, in the current beta, I do believe Evanessia is the better DPS of these two. And then on top of this, with her not having as much reliance on specific elation supports, unlike Silverwolf, it does make her, at least as of current, a significantly more valuable elation DPS for the majority of you out there. So even though Evanessia isn't the main one getting shield, as a V1, she is the better elation DPS, and the one I'd recommend most people pull for if you're looking for something cheap and something that isn't too reliant on having specific supports. Silverwolf, though, completely different story, which we'll get into right now, right? Silverwolf right now does seem to be weaker than Evanessia. Now, here's the thing. The doom posting around Silverwolf currently is a little out of hand across all social medias. She is significantly better than most of you would think. It's just that apparently these Silverwolf lovers who are testing her showcases, who have actually gotten very good clears, are withholding their clears and not uploading them because they don't want her to get nerfed. So I don't know how true this exactly is, take it with a grain of salt, but if it is true, what this implies is that Silverwolf is probably as strong as Evanessia, if not possibly stronger, and the Zero Cycle showcasers who have found this out have decided to gatekeep it so that they don't get nerfed, right? Now, here's the thing. I don't know how true this is. Once again, take it with a grain of salt, but from the showcases I've been able to see so far, even though I don't know whether or not this is true, she is definitely getting overly doom posted, mostly because of early showcasers, which in this game are already known for usually not being the greatest, right? So Silverwolf is strong, definitely one of the top DPSs in this game. People saying otherwise are simply wrong. However, she does feel just a little incomplete. It isn't that Yao Guang doesn't synergize enough, it's actually that, Yao Guang synergy is way beyond what I originally expected, right? It's simply that it feels like she has a missing piece to the puzzle, whether it be in her own kit or from a future elation support / sustain, which I assume to be Nihilux, right? So when it comes to Silverwolf, her most apparent issue is the fact that she can't be on high speed. It seems like it's hard to get her to higher speed because she has a fat attack conversion to elation trace that usually wants you to keep her on attack boots. It's not easy hitting that attack threshold, right? But then, once again, if you do this, Silverwolf is slower. The reason this is a problem is Silverwolf has a Rappa-esque ultimate. She gets the ultimate, she gets 3 turns, and it's an enhanced BA. At the end of these 3 turns, she does one big explosion, and then she leaves the ultimate state. However, she does not have the speed to support this playstyle. It takes way too long until she ends up getting her second turn because her speed is so low and she doesn't have any action advance outside of when she first initiates an ultimate. So it's just not great, right? Or at least it doesn't feel the greatest. Once again, she's performing well. She is strong. She's a top tier DPS, but it just feels a little too weird. She definitely needs some type of speed buff or some type of way to action advance herself when she's in her ultimate, so that she can get more turns off more quickly, which would then fix a majority of her main kit issues currently, and people would stop saying that she feels clunky. Right now, I don't know, maybe she purposely has this flaw and they're going to try and fix it by selling a future elation sustain. I don't know. However, I do think they will probably make it so that she has a bit more speed in her ultimate, because otherwise it just feels, once again, very scuffed, because she's too slow, but she wants to run attack for the elation conversion for her damage increase. It's just not good. So she's kind of in like a Firefly situation, right? Imagine if Break ever made a Break action advancer. That would be very, very strong for Firefly specifically. Maybe not so much at E2 because she can already give herself so many turns, but you kind of get the point. Pre-Nova Firefly, you could genuinely use Bronya instead of Fugue on a Firefly team and achieve similar performance, because, I mean, the extra turns, right? Just incredibly valuable. So Silverwolf is currently in the same situation. Unless you're running Sustainless with Yao Guang, Sparksy, Sparkle, and you're running Sustain, it's just really scuffed with her in her ultimate state, right? Now, let's get into what a lot of you want to finally hear. We finally have the beta. It's been a few days. We can definitely give an opinion on Yao Guang value when it comes to Silverwolf, right? I am happy to say, or unhappy to say, depending on who you are, right? But if you are one of the Yao Guang truthers who stuck it out with me, who fully believed in me, who understood what it was I was trying to say in my videos, that she was going to be massively best in slot for Silverwolf, congratulations, right? Yao Guang, believe it or not, as of current, is actually more important for Silverwolf than Sparksy. No, you did not hear that incorrectly. Most of Silverwolf's lowest cost clears against endgame content have Yao Guang. Sparksy, although still definitive best in slot in my opinion, by no means am I trying to take something away from her. This just goes to show you how insane the synergy between Yao Guang and Silverwolf is, to the point where Yao Guang's value in a Silverwolf team trumps that of Sparksy's. So yeah, Yao Guang is definitely a vast best in slot in specifically Silverwolf teams. She's still best in slot for Evanessia. It's just not by any amount near what it is for Silverwolf. Silverwolf's jump from getting Yao Guang is, no joke, astronomical. There's no other way I can put it. It is fucking astronomical, right? So that is everything I have to discuss with you guys today. My thoughts on the Nova Flared characters, my thoughts on Eva and Silverwolf, and as well as their synergy with Yao Guang. Yao Guang is not a break. Yao Guang is not a character who can at all be easily replaced, and at the current point of the beta, with how important Yao Guang seems to be, it's nearly guaranteed she is not going anywhere. Love you all. Hope you have a great day. Hope you all have a great night. Peace out.